Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I want to have a little bit of a rant with you guys. I'm in the middle of disassembling and reassembling this CRKT Pilar here in D2 steel, because it just needs to be serviced. It's not, worth a disassembly video because I've already done that for this knife. But nevertheless, I figured I would take this as an opportunity maybe to rant a little bit. I kind of paused myself mid-go here and said, hey, why the heck not? Let's just talk. So let me know if you enjoy this format of video, and I may do it again in the future next time I'm taking something apart that doesn't merit being filmed otherwise. But what I want to talk about a little bit today is bias as a gear reviewer. What does that look like? What is that even? Because it's something that people talk a lot about, and it always, it strikes me as a little strange when people do, but it's always interesting. It's a strange thing. So bias. There are a bunch of different kinds of bias as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there are things that are inherent to, reviews. Look, the elephant in the room is that a product review is always absolutely 100% biased, because it is always absolutely 100% subjective. Every time that you hear a person product reviewing, is this screw just too short or something? What the heck is going on here? Let me swap these around. Maybe it's just the case that this side needs to be longer. Yeah, let's swap that there. That's going in. Now let's try this. If so, that's weird. Anyways, bias is an important thing to... Yeah, that seems to be the case. All right, whatever. It works. But bias, there are a bunch of different kinds. And the fact is that a product review is by its design, it's by its very definition, a personal thing. It is a personal opinion. There is no such thing as a product review that is completely objective. You can have trappings of objectivity, right? You can talk about things that are, more measurable, etc. But for some reason, a lot of people have this idea that, a good reviewer is completely devoid of bias, is completely objective, looks at the world from, this scientific standpoint, which, is completely unimpeachable. There's absolutely no room for personal opinion or bias. And so as a result, holy centering, Batman. As a result, though, people get a little bit kind of concerned when you fully admit, yeah, I'm biased about this kind of thing. And so there were a couple of different sources of that, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, so I figured I'd talk about it. One of the things that I've noticed in myself as a form of bias is just emotion. For instance, I had a couple of days this week where I was grumpy. This is not like, I'm not asking for a pity party here. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I never really left you. I'm just here to tell you that everybody has off days, right? I had a couple of off days, and I had a couple of videos that I am ready to film. I got a couple of things on the table here that are just good to go. All I need to do is either film them or just write the review and then film them. That would make things a whole lot, I could just get it done easy freaking peasy. Life is good. But I didn't do that because, well, the issue is I was going to be a pain about it. Had I written those reviews, had I gone through, and had I done those reviews, I feel like I wouldn't have been fair to the product that was sitting there on the table. It would have been done, not necessarily, my feelings on the product would have been clouded by my feelings on, what's going on in my life in general. And again, my life is fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay. But nevertheless, I'm just gonna clean up my kapara here while I'm talking, because I've been carrying this guy a little bit. But I just knew that if it wouldn't get a fair shake. And that's always something I'm concerned about. As a reviewer, I never, ever want to put something on my table and give it a review that is not a result of the product and its, strengths and weaknesses, but just of my absolute, where I was at that very moment. And that can be really difficult to do for a bunch of reasons. To start with, sure, it's frustrating. You're having an off week or something, you're just grumpy, you're bitter, you're whatever. You're going to have those kinds of issues. And so that means that sometimes, if I lose a weekend, because usually I spend my weekends on this channel. Greetings from Friday afternoon, by the way. But nevertheless, if I have a weekend where for some reason I'm just not in a good state to film, it's easy to fall behind, right? It's easy to, and, especially this is part of the reason why I'm not taking as many loaners lately, or very many at all, is because, well, I can't guarantee quick timelines. If I'm having a rough week at work, if I'm having to put in extra time over the weekend or something like that, then, well, I don't want to be on holding up somebody else's life as a result of that. So that can be a problem, just like, well, that fixed itself, I suppose. But that can be a problem. That can be a frustration for me. Not being able to film when I need to film, or at least when I've got the time to, that can suck, frankly. Just be a pain in my neck. That's okay, though. But that's one source of bias. It's just like your own personal life. Every day you are a different human at some level. There are consistencies, one would hope, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that, and I do my best to adjust for that. One other thing is like positional bias. What I mean by that is, for instance, imagine that I have just finished reviewing the biggest piece of crap that has ever crossed my table. Something that is absolutely terrible. Something that is, oh my God, awful. And then I review something that is mediocre. That mediocre thing is going to look great. It's going to be like, oh my God, this is the best shining example of excellent mediocrity ever. Versus if I've just finished reviewing something that is just amazing, something that is really good, like your Kapara here, something that's, if I review something that is this damn good, and then immediately after it, I shift my view to something else that is, okay, it's like, all right, this is fine. We are fine here. Then that thing, the thing that is just fine, is going to be viewed as in a different light. This is just a fact of human cognition. I try my best not to, well, at least I certainly can't compensate for it completely. I'm not, a freaking robot here, but I do my best to take that into account. To try and, cleanse my palate or something like that, or just to try and give everything a fair shake on its own merits. But that is another thing that can absolutely bias a person. Another thing that can bias a person that's completely unrelated to the piece of gear at hand is the company. So, let's say that I'm, getting ready to sit down and film a review of the, blah-blah-blah company, blah 1812. Blah 1812, really? That's what you come up with, Nick? Okay, whatever. Anyway, so I'm sitting down to review your Blah 1812 there, and then I noticed that the company has just done something pretty amazing in the community. And, there are so many good instances of companies doing cool things in the community. You'll see, and it's marketing, but it's also like, okay, that's kind of cool, right? They make somebody's day, somebody loses everything in a house fire, they give them a brand new knife just to get them started back off there. I mean, little details, but those are kind of cool things to see. Or a good friend of mine is talking to me about having a great warranty experience or a great spa service. Or you just see that person being excellent to somebody else. And those are little kind of things, but it absolutely can bias a person. Or frankly, even just having interactions. This is always the risk of having any kind of an interaction, even if it's just over Instagram or something with a maker, is you see them as humans, right? You see them as actual, as people. And sometimes they're people you like. Sometimes they're people you don't really care for as people, but you can still respect them as makers. That's definitely been a thing as well. And sometimes they're people where it's just like, wow, my life will be, the goodness of my life is measured by the amount of time I spend not around you. That kind of situation. All of those things can be there, and all of those things can play a role. All of those things can lead to some degree of bias, where I'm talking about elements, or at least as I'm thinking about a piece of gear, I'm thinking about, things that are not relevant to that particular item. This is not great, right? I mean, from a scientific perspective, that's not something you want. In a perfect world, as a matter of fact, I would be able to do all of what I'm doing here blindly. I mean, that would be difficult because I'd probably cut myself and whatnot. But still, I would be able to look, for instance, at a brand new piece and not know who it is, not know until the end what the price is, not know any of these kinds of things, not know where it's made, not know what factory, and just judge it purely on the merits. That's simply not a possibility. I am a part of the gear community. So it's hard for me to pretend, oh, okay, I never heard of this maker before. Oh, wow, this one's got a hole in the blade. I wonder who made it. No, that's not a freaking thing. So that's not a possibility. It is a result that's a little bit frustrating, or at the very least it can, play heck with bias. It can cause those sorts of issues. And, even just preconceptions about a maker. There have definitely been times where I've been surprised, where a maker who who usually does great work does something pretty awful, or a maker who usually does something awful actually steps their game up and knocks it out of the park. And I'd like to think that I've caught a lot of those situations, and I haven't let my preconceived notions completely, warp the process. But still, all of these things are instances of bias, and those are absolutely the case. All of these things, it's always weird to talk about this, because every so often somebody will, seem very butthurt about for lack of a better term, about the fact that these things are subjective, that there is, in fact, some degree of bias inherent in this process, that I am a human, and as a result, I have feelings. I have, for instance, different hands. Recently I had somebody call me out in a thread on Blade forums for some reason or another, and basically said that I had said, and this isn't actually true, but hey, whatever, it's their thread, have fun. But they said that I had claimed that the Spyderco Shaman is a much more durable knife than the PM2, and called on the community. I love when people call on the community to do things. Yes, I do on a regular basis. Anyways, called on people to give me one example of something that the Spyderco Shaman could do that the Spyderco PM2 could not. Very like, you will not be able to do this, you mere plebeians, etc., whatever. But anyways, and, asked, what can the shaman do otherwise? And then, I responded because he called me out more or less directly, and I said, well, look, this is, that's not something I said, but that's not, you ruin a good thread with reality. But more importantly, that's my opinion. If I call something a little bit beefier, I mean, that one's a case where it kind of is. But, I talked about the ergonomics. That was the big thing I said the shaman had over the PM2. For me, the shaman is more ergonomic. He said, well, yeah, but isn't that just related to your hands? I said, well, yeah, these are the only hands I've got, guy. And then he said, so is it true that every ergonomic statement you've ever made on your channel is based on your own subjective experience? Like in the, oh my God, it's like, yeah. What else do you think it is? This is not a scientific process, and I don't know. That's always funny to me. So anyways, I mean, I guess the upshot of this video, mostly I'm just kind of ranting here, I'll be real, but is that there are all kinds of different sources of bias in gear review. And I've talked on many different occasions about one of the necessary things here, and I'll just keep moving on to something else that needs servicing, because why the heck not? But one of the many sources of the Civivi, what the heck is the name of this thing? Anthropos. There we go. Anyways, one of the sources of bias, at least, what the heck was I just saying? As I move on to the Anthropos here. I have no freaking clue what I was just saying. Wow, damn, I'm good, people. Damn, I am good. But anyways, this is just one of those things that is always interesting to me when people talk about it. Because at some level, it's funny that they're expecting anything else, anything other than bias. But at another level, it's always a little bit like, I can see the frustration there. I can see that desire. I wish in some ways that this could be done. Oh, there we go. That's what I was saying. This is one of the reasons I always suggest and propose and extol the virtues of having multiple reviewers around. Having a lot of different channels that people are watching, having a variety of voices. That way, when something brand new comes up, it's not just a couple of people talking out about it. It's not just a couple of people sharing their opinion. It's not just one or two loud jackasses who are shouting into the void and everybody's listening to them. That's a bad state of affairs. That is a bad set of information. Because, look, I am biased. Flat out. I have tiny little hands. That's not true. I mean, I have smaller hands than most men. Whatever. But that is a source of my bias. I like smaller knives. That is a source of my bias. I have had manufacturers who I have witnessed to be really, really kind to people as well as to me. And I've had manufacturers who I've witnessed be really, really mean to people as well as to me. And in some cases, both. But, nonetheless, I am biased. And so it is important, I think, for the community to have a bunch of people around so that if something brand new drops, and I just pan it, I say this is the biggest piece of crap ever, and then every other person in the community says, this is an amazing knife. And I'm not saying that about this guy, by the way. This is just getting disassembled because it's on my table and needing it. But anyways, it's important, I think, that we have that variety of perspectives for exactly that reason. If one person is biased, if one person... And then we're not even talking, by the way, about explicit kinds of bias. I mean, for instance, things like if companies... I've had companies offer outright to pay me to promote something. where it's like, I tell them, I want an honest review, and I'll give an honest review, and they'll be like, no, that's not what we're interested in. We want you to say positive things about it, and this is the amount of money we will pay you to do so. We want you to promote our product. We want you to be a part of our advertising team. And that is, well, an easy way to get me to tell you to go yourself, but still, there are definitely things like that out there, and there have been rumors, certainly, and probably there have been realities of people doing that, of people just letting that happen, where it's just like, yep, they're bought and paid for. Or, there's always the question of review samples. Is that a biasing factor? For me, I don't really think it is, because, well, very often I'm doing that for a charitable purpose, so it's not like I'm being enriched by it. And I also have I have the knowledge that even if, for instance, a major company like Spyderco has sent me review samples before, even if they decided tomorrow, like, oh, well, you know what, screw that Shabazz guy, he said one too many nasty things about, our latest product, I know that I could keep doing what I'm doing thanks to my generous patrons, and that wouldn't kill me, so I can talk very freely about those kinds of things. But there are those kinds of bias as well, and I do my best to watch out for those. But anyways, it's always helpful, though, to have that multiplicity of perspectives, have multiple people with multiple opinions, because one person may be able to be bought off, or maybe multiple people, or one person may just have a bad day. One person might wake up on the wrong damn side of the bed the day they reviewed that and just widely pan it. But if you hear a bunch of people all saying the same damn thing about something, that's when you should start listening. That's when you should start saying, okay, maybe there's a problem here. Or, on the other side, maybe this thing is really that incredible. And that's been one of my, one of the things I kind of take a look at, when I'm looking at the community. Certainly I am a reviewer, but I also watch other people's reviews sometimes, especially for things I'm kind of curious about, where I can see them eliciting strong emotions, right? And so it's always important, I think, to do that cross-checking, right? What's how the heck do you do that in English? Trust but verify. That's right. You want to do that. You want to do that. It's a good idea, generally speaking. And that's one of the very best ways to avoid getting burned by bias, is not to listen to any one jackass, no matter how much you like them or you like their opinions, because their opinions could be bad. Some people pretend that this bias is not a thing, where it's just like, nope, I'm science. No problem. I don't even have to think twice about these things. I am perfection incarnate in the reviewing game. Don't even worry about it. Those are the folks you should be a little scared of, in my estimation, because anybody who doesn't think they're biased is probably way more biased than even most. I don't know. It's something I just think about anyways. So anyways, I hope this has been it. Holy crap, 17 minutes. Look, let me know in the video or in the comments below if this is something you're interested in. If you're not interested in it, well, I'll just consider you biased and ignore it. Oh, that's better. But in all seriousness, though, I hope this has been interesting to you. It's something I spend a lot of time thinking about and trying to armor myself against, but, from my own self, that is. But it's always at the end of the day, it's always an interesting thing. Well, that's better. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.